For Life here bringing us a brand new archetype analysis, and today we got one that has been requested to me quite a lot by one of you guys, and actually it turned out third in the poll that I did a while back, which is pretty crazy. So Paleozoic is an interesting archetype. It's a personal favorite of mine in terms of its design, in that they are all based on, well, Paleozoic creatures, animals that we barely know anything about and have very few fossils of, which leaves a lot of wiggle room for how we can imagine what they look like. And it's really interesting too, because that era of the planet was really crazy, so life was really crazy. And that really shows off in the artwork of these things. I love the artwork and the lore and the idea of these cards. And I think the Yu-Gi-Oh community likes them a lot too, and kind of a similar kind of thing, because this deck is routinely, along with frogs, one of the most popular control archetypes in the game. Basically, this is a control deck. All the monsters, with the exception of the two Xyz monsters, are trap monsters in a way. Standard trap monsters, are normal, continuous traps that summon themselves as monsters. Well, with the Arc V era, which these cards are from, Konami was really trying out a new type of trap monster, traps that summon themselves in a different way from being as being a monster. We first saw this with the Phantom cards in, I think it was Phantom of I can't remember what the first Phantom trap card was, the one that Yuto used in his first duel. But we first saw that with that, and then they experimented with some other cards, and then we got a full archetype with this design around it, where they really wanted to fix the issue of trap monsters, where you can summon them, but then your opponent just MSTs it, which made trap monsters really fragile. And now they've gotten away with that, with apparently how trap monsters don't take up a back row anymore. You used to, whenever you'd summon an embodiment of Apophis, for instance, you would not be able to use that space that it was originally in as well. But I think you can still MST it. I'm not entirely for sure. It's been a while since I've read up on it. But anyways, these Paleozoics really expanded on that idea of being monsters, summoning the card itself as a monster and not still being treated as a trap. So they are all level 2 normal monsters while they're a monster, but they all have control focused effects whenever they are a trap card. Also, every single Paleozoic has the effect where if a trap card is activated once per chain, you can special summon it from your graveyard as a level 2 water aqua monster with 1200 attack and 0 defense. Fun fact, whenever these cards were first revealed in Korea, because funnily enough, these were Korean exclusives for the longest time, they did not say once per chain, and they had to clarify it in a rolling later, and then they actually put it on the card text later, which is really good, because when Paleos were first revealed, it was thought that, you could activate one trap and summon 5 Paleos from your graveyard, and I remember doing that on Ygopro, and it was ridiculous until they rolled it that you can only summon one off of one trap, and then they just flat out put it on the card, thank God, because otherwise that'd be rolling nightmares. But I digress. So, there's not much really to talk about in terms of the main deck monsters, because, well, they all have the exact same card text of, well, special summon it as a level 2 water normal with 1200 attack, 0 defense, and it gets banished if it leaves the field. But, however, we do have quite a lot to talk about in terms of their activated effects, as well as also the Xyz monsters and some various builds you can do with this archetype. So first and foremost, let's talk about one of the big ones, one of the good ones, I should say. That's Paleozoic Canada. I keep wanting to call it Canada, and I am really sorry if I do call it, and I just realized that I really should have made a Canada pun for the joke title of this frame. But I digress, I'm going with Book of Moonsnake. So, basically, as I explain in the name, this thing is a Book of Moon. When you activate it, target a face-up monster your opponent controls, change it to face-down defense, and then again, it shares the same effect where it can summon itself from your graveyard when you activate a trap, or actually when a trap card is activated, so even if your opponent activates a trap, which is pretty cool. So, since this is one of the better ones, especially since it counters Xyz, Links, and Synchros, because you can't Synchro, Link, or Xyz with a face-down monster, Book of Mooning stuff is really good, and depending on your build, you're going to want to play 2 to 3 of this card, because it is just that good in terms of its stun factor. Moving on, we got another one of the best ones that's so good that it actually gets played as a tech option in certain slower decks, and that's Dinomischus. This thing, whenever you activate it, you target a face-up card on the field, discard a card, and if you do, you banish that card that you targeted. This is just free, well, almost free removal for banishing stuff. The discard is really nice, especially for decks that want to discard, or if you're playing, I don't know, the Dangers or something, you know. It results in a really, really, really powerful card for the Archetype, because you get to just banish anything at the cost of a discard. That doesn't matter. Now, ideally, if you're looking at Paleozoics, you're discarding a Paleozoic, so then when you activate another Paleozoic, you get to summon another Paleozoic from your graveyard, or Dinomischus itself, which is really cool. But, however, you can discard other stuff. Like, for instance, if you're playing Danger Dark World, you can discard a Danger or a Dark Worlder and get their effects to, well, do something. Or, like, if you're playing, like, Infernity, you can get good old Archfiend in Graveyard, so you can revive them with your, I forgot its name, Necromancer, to bring back that and get some searches on. It results in a really good tech option that is even better in its own archetype. So, really, honestly, out of all the Paleozoics, you definitely want to be playing 3 of this one. Something you don't want to play 3 of is Eldonia. Yeah, for some reason, this thing got a super rare version, which is really weird. It's one of the Paleos that's not even played in pure Paleo. Basically, target a face-up monster in the field, it gains 500 attack and defense until the end of this turn. Yeah, that's not particularly great. I mean, the 500 attack and defense buff is okay, but, like, it just isn't enough to warrant being played. If it was, like, 1,000, it still wouldn't be worth playing, but, however, there'd be a better argument for it, because 1,000 attack points and 1,000 defense is, like, actually, like, notable. But, however, only being a 500 attack or defense buff, that is not good at all, and really isn't worth playing in any form of Paleo whatsoever. Moving on, we got Paleozoic Hallucigenia. This thing is a nightmare fuel, and if I remember right, the actual Hallucigenias, they think that they walked along the ground with their spindly little legs and stuff, which is really freaky. I can't imagine how that thing would walk, but oh well. So, this thing is a better version of Eldonia. It's so funny. Eldonia was like in a second or third wave of Paleozoic support, yet they already had a better version of it released prior. Hallucigenia, whenever you activate it, you target a monster in the field, its attack and defense become half its current attack and defense until the end of the turn. This is really nasty for pure builds, because the pure deck has a hard time getting over beefier stuff sometimes. And heck, even some non-pure builds do play one of it just to be able to get over bigger monsters. But, however, it's not worth playing in the mixed builds because, like, whenever you got frogs going with you, you generally don't need to worry about this. But, however, it is a nice little card for something to consider in certain builds, especially pure-focused ones. So, it is something to consider for pure, maybe as a 2 of or a 1 of, just be able to get over beefier monsters. Moving on, we got Paleozoic Lincolaya. I'm going with that. Lincolaya here is a trilobite looking thing, and it basically just targets a banished card and returns it to the graveyard. It's basically freaking Ciphering Lord Omega, which is pretty nice. It's really good for pure decks because the deck does tend to banish its stuff kind of often, relatively. But however, for the non-pure builds, unless you do use a lot of banishing stuff, and there are some shenanigans you can pull with this, like for instance with Destiny Hero Malicious and stuff like that, because you can put a Malicious back in your graveyard and use its effect again, or you can put something that was banished and, you know, just be able to use its effect again. It's really nasty in, like, zombie versions of Paleos, which I have seen. Some people tried building a stun zombie Paleo deck, basically just relying on, you know, Dinomischus and Canadia to be able to really just stun the opponent. And then he would play Lincolaya, because then you could freaking return your Mizuki to the graveyard and get a free Paleo from your graveyard as well, because, well, you'll get to summon a dude from your graveyard, which is nice. I recommend 2 of it for pure, but it's not really needed for mixed, unless, like, you can really take advantage of something stupid, like putting Mizuki back in your graveyard, like with good old zombies. Next up, we got Paleozoic Morella. Probably my favorite in terms of design. It just looks so cool. And I just realized that he has eyes, and it's looking at me like it's sneering, and I suddenly don't like its artwork anymore. So Morella here is basically a full burial. For the Archetype, whenever you activate it, you send a trap from your deck to your graveyard. This can actually be used in some other really funny shenanigans, like putting good old Lost Winds in your graveyard to Tynicider and other useful traps for the Archetype and everything. But at the same time, though, you better off playing Full Burial of Goods because it's faster and you do get stuff in there better, and you can use other cards in your graveyard, like for instance, oh, you don't need a trap in the graveyard, but Full Burial of Goods lets you send a spell that you might need. So yeah, this card isn't really that great. It's nice in pure builds, but it's not particularly great in the mixed builds. I do see the occasional person playing one of it just to be able to help do graveyard setup. Next up, we got Paleozoic Oleanotus. Oleanotus is another one of the really good ones. It's funny how all the good ones got released in the first wave. So Oleanotus basically is an MST. You activate it, target a spiral trap card on the field, destroy it. Not much more to say than that. You play 2 or 3 depending on the format. Most of the time I see people playing 3 for pure and mixed, but I have seen some people play 2, so it comes down to the format and everything and your personal preferences. Then we got one of the more divisive ones. I remember people were really debating on playing it or not in mixed builds back when Paleo first came out over here. And people were arguing on whether or not it was even worth playing this. This is Pikaia. You discard 1 Paleozoic card, draw 2 cards. It's a D-draw for the Archetype. Which is really good for Paleos because, well, you get a Paleo in your graveyard, you get to draw a couple cards, and you get to keep on a trucking because more than likely this will also summon a Paleo from your graveyard because, well, you activated a trap. The big thing is that it gets a Paleo in the graveyard, it then gets itself in the graveyard, and you get to draw 2 cards, which is really good. Now, because of that, you're going to want to play 3 in the pure build. Now, why would you not want to play so much in the mixed? That's because, believe it or not, but this is the last of the Paleo traps. Paleozoic is not a large archetype whatsoever, and as you have seen, most of it is not even played into like really good builds. In the really good builds, you typically see Canadia, Dinomischus, sometimes Hallucigenia, but even then when they do, it's only like one of, and then typically speaking, it's only a notice. So that's, what, 9 cards maybe, and you can discard another copy of Pikaia, but you typically wouldn't want to do that with a draw card. So, typically speaking, you don't have a lot of targets for the mixed builds to be able to really make full use of Pikaia. Which sucks, because getting to draw 2 cards is really good. People will typically do anything they can to get 2 more cards in their hand. So, this is really, really divisive. Some people will play one of it in the mixed builds because, hey, it's a draw card, and it's very hard to say no to a draw card. But, however, because you don't typically play a lot of targets in the mixed builds, it's not typically warranted. Now then, we get to the 2 boss monsters. First and foremost, we got Paleozoic Anomalocaris. Anomalocaris, oh my god. If I remember right, these are the freaking giant sea scorpions that are New York State fossil. I might be wrong on that. I feel like I am wrong, but I also really want to say I am right because this thing looks like a giant evil sea scorpion. But anyway, so it is a rank 2, 2400 attack, 0 defense. Needs 3 or more level 2 monsters to go into. Theoretically speaking, you can use 5 monsters. You typically don't see that happen too often. And it has the following effects. This card is unaffected by other monster effects. Once per turn, if a trap card or cards is sent from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it is a trap, add it to your hand. Otherwise, send it to your graveyard. Once per turn, during your first turn, if this card has a trap card as Xyz material, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, then target a card on the field, destroy it. This thing is an amazing boss monster for this archetype, okay? Like, overall, it is just fantastic. This thing is unaffected by monster effects. And gets you more advantage every time you use one of your other dudes. So, like, okay, for instance, you have this guy out, you activate Pikaia, you get to discard a card, draw 2, you activated a trap, oh, hey, your trap just went to the graveyard, effective Anomalocaris, Excavate the top card. Ooh, it's another trap. Add it to hand. Oh, wait, no, it's not a trap. It is a frog, and it goes to my graveyard, and now I get to use the frog affecting the graveyard, or, well, just use it for targets for freaking Ronin Totem. So, yeah, this thing is really, really good. Anomalocaris is, like, one of the best examples of an all-around good boss monster. Not only is it a really annoying thing to get over because it's unaffected by monster effects and has a pretty beefy amount of attack. Heck, it's actually got the highest attack of any rank 2 at 2400, which rivals even like other like rank 4s like Stardust. Well, not Stardust isn't a rank 4. Freaking Utopia and other, you know, like sometimes played and commonly played rank 4s. So this thing is a beefy boss monster. So, why is it that only one is typically played in mixed decks? Because, well, the mixed builds focus more on summoning out Totally Awesome, and up until Totally Awesome was hit to 1, you would spam out 3 Totally Awesome, and while you would play 1 Anomalocaris, you would never need it because 3 Totally Awesome will carry you through a game. That's my only real issue with Paleo as an archetype, is that even though they have an awesome boss monster in Anomalocaris, Totally Awesome is just objectively better, being a negate that also steals your opponent's card and recycles itself, and is really, really, really obnoxious. So yeah, Anomalocaris, you typically see 2 of them sometimes played in pure builds because he's so easy to summon in pure builds, and he is the focus of the pure builds. But however, for the mixed, you only need 1. Maybe you could argue for 2 nowadays with Totally Awesome at 1, but however, you just don't see it too often, so yeah. Next up, we got their other really good card, Paleozoic Opabinia. Opabinia is a rank 2, Aqua Xyz effect monster with 0 attack, 2400 defense. It's a reverse. It even faces the reverse way. Haha, I see what you did, Konami. So, Opabinia needs 2 level 2s to go into. This card is unaffected by other monster effects. Once again, that's really good, and with 2400 defense, your opponent's going to have a hard time punching over it. You can... this is its first real effect. You can activate Paleozoic trap cards from your hand. You can activate your Paleos from your hand. This thing is so stupid. Once you get it out in Paleo, it is just so bonkers. It makes your Paleos live at any time. You don't need to set them first, which means if you make this thing turn 1 and along with like a Totally Awesome, and your opponent doesn't know how many Paleos you have in your hand, they are walking into a potential minefield. If you make this and have Totally Awesome out and you have like 3 or 4 cards in hand, you will basically be making your opponent really second guess everything they do, because if they try to do anything, you might hit them with a surprise Dynamiscus or Canadia or Oneonotus or whatever, because whenever you have your trap cards in your hand, your opponent doesn't know what you got unless like you searched it with Opabiania's next effect, where you can detach an Xyz material from this card. If it has a trap, it has an Xyz material. Add a Paleozoic trap card from your deck to your hand. You can only use that effect of Opabania once per turn. This thing is bonkers stupid. I love it. It's really good and all around an awesome boss monster that pairs well with an Anomalocaris and good old Totally Awesome. So yeah, you generally want to play 2 to 3 in pure because it's just that good for the deck, and it does tend to die rather quickly because, I mean, as much as I like to pretend 2400 is a huge number, it's not that hard to punch over. You do typically only see 1 to 2 in mixed because it's just not as important or relevant. But however, well, mainly because you tend to get out 1 and then, well, you just win. But on that case as well, good old Totally Awesome can recycle it, I believe, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've read Toad. But however, I believe it can recycle it, and you got some other ways to do that as well. So that is it for the good old trap deck. Good old Paleozoic. Again, there's not much I can really add to the conversation of Paleo, because Paleo is just such a straightforward deck. Everybody knows what this deck does. It's a very slow-paced control deck, at least in terms of pure, but however, the mixed builds add a lot of faster elements to it and make the deck actually be able to do really good turn 1 boards. It's not able to do it by itself too much, but however, with the, like for instance, frogs and stuff, it's able to do a lot more. And that being said, I really wish this deck had more support. It's got the fan base for it. I don't get why Konami hasn't given it more support. Probably because it's already got everything it could want. Sure, it has a couple of turds in the archetype, with freaking Eldonia. What the hell? But however, it's got everything an archetype could want. It's got a great boss monster. It's got a search card. It has a draw card. It has back row removal. It has monster removal. It has monster book of mooning. It has everything an archetype could want. The only thing it really needs to be its own archetype is more monsters in general, and heck, more support. I'd really like to see a field spell or a spell or trap card or something, I guess I really shouldn't say trap because they got plenty of traps, but they could really use some spell cards, a field spell, continuous spell, anything that lets them be able to just continue on with their stuff. Maybe a monster even. I mean, maybe that'd be going too much against what the archetype wants to do, but they did leave that possibly open because Pikaia can discard any Paleozoic card, not just trap cards, so that is something that they did future-proof themselves for. So it'll be interesting to see what Konami does for it in the future. Now, normally this would be the end of one of my archetype analyses, but however, because this was a short one, and because I want to try out some other ideas with archetype analysis, let's look at some builds for the archetype that I cooked up, just to kind of look at. First and foremost, let's talk Pure. Pure is really interesting. It's a very, very slow-paced deck. You're not going to be popping off totally awesomes left and right. Well, I mean, you can't anymore. He's at 1. But, however, you are able to take full advantage of a lot more of the very controlling trap cards in the game. Like, for instance, you're able to really make more use of Titanicider and the Solemn cards, and because you aren't special summoning as often, you're able to play Pot of Desires, which is really handy for the archetype. Sorry, did I say Pot? You do play Pot of Desires, but you're also able to play Pot of Duality. It's been so long since I've said Pot of Duality. Desires rolled off instead, but I digress. So that is really handy as well, and allows the deck to be able to just have that much more of a consistency booster. So yeah. Moving on, let's look at Paleo Frogs. Now, I am going to be 100% honest, I am not a Paleo Frog player, and I mostly just kind of went off from my own experiences of what Paleo Frog is like. There are much better sources to go to for Paleo Frog builds, but this is my kind of idea with it. It's basically just get a bunch of frogs in graveyard and be able to spam out Totally Awesome as much as possible, alongside with maybe making an Anomalocaris and a Cat Shark to be able to just go for big damage. Typically speaking, you're not really going to be focusing on the big damage aspect as much as just controlling the board and preventing your opponent from doing stuff. And then finally, I wanted to tackle Paleo Actress, Aqua Actress. Aqua Actress is an archetype that is super, super small, and it was one of the archetypes that Konami randomly printed and really needs to give more support. But it's really interesting in what it can do, and it has some pretty interesting synergy with Paleo, especially in the fact that, one of their main monsters is a level 2 that can just plop out another Aqua Actress at any time. The Aqua Actress spells and traps give a lot of protection to water monsters and makes Anomalocaris and Opabinia that much harder to kill, along with making the freaking Paleos themselves that much harder to kill. So it's a really interesting fun build, but nothing major. Honestly, if you're going to play Paleo, I highly recommend Paleo Frogs if you want to try and go for actually doing well in a tournament, because that is the objectively best build of the deck, and there's plenty of wiggle room of trying out different ideas and tech options for the deck. And then behind that is Pure. Pure is fun but slow. I really like it. I get a kick out of playing Pure. I don't know why. It's just my favorite way of playing it. And then you got Paleo Actress if you want to be that random weird guy. But hey, it's a fun little mess around. So what do you guys think about Paleo? Paleo, I would say, is probably one of the biggest fan favorite archetypes coming out, just randomly in the past few years. Not having anything to do with the anime, not having anything to do with the characters. It's not a waifu deck either. I mean, I guess maybe one of them could be somebody's waifu. I don't want to know you if you do have a waifu in a paleo archetype. I don't know. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. Rate, comment, and subscribe. Please consider donating or joining my good old channel membership down below. Checking out my other social links down below as well would be really appreciated. See y'all later. Peace out and goodbye. Thank you all for watching the video. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Rate, comment, and subscribe. And see y'all later.